Greetings, my name is Kenneth, although my companions refer to me as Ken. Recently, I celebrated my 33rd birthday, and I have an extraordinary tale to share. Prior to today's events, I held a skeptical view towards karma and other spiritual concepts. I regarded them as mere placebo effects. However, my perspective has undergone a transformation. I am now a staunch believer in the notion that one reaps what they sow. This change of heart can be attributed to my malevolent mother-in-law and her equally maleficent relatives, with the exception of my stunning wife, of course. Somehow, she managed to rise above the malevolence she was exposed to during her years living with them. The drama began on a sunny Wednesday morning in my residence. "Come downstairs for a moment," my wife called out. Curious, I inquired, "What is it, honey?" She proceeded to beseech me for a favor, employing the most endearing puppy dog eyes known to mankind. With a face as beautiful as hers, who could ever refuse? She went on to explain that her mother, Georgina, was coming to town and needed a place to stay. I immediately sensed where this was headed and adamantly refused. However, she persisted, saying, "Babe, it's just for the weekend. Can't you handle a sweet little old lady for a mere 2 days?" That woman was anything but little or sweet. She was the epitome of evil incarnate. I swear, the torment I have endured to be with Kimberly surpasses any portrayal of wicked in-laws depicted in movies. I genuinely marvel each day at how such a benevolent and gentle soul emerged from a background of chaos. As I embarked on my mission of how I simply couldn't handle it, and how Georgina would just have to stay in a hotel or something, Kimberly started to appear upset. As I hinted earlier, I am entertaining. Her hands have this woman has my heart completely captivated. I reluctantly agreed, and she exclaimed like a little schoolgirl, thanking me profusely because you've been so kind and cooperative. I'm also going to ensure that she behaves well too. Don't worry, with any luck, you two won't even cross paths during this day. It will all go smoothly, I assure you. Well, that turned out to be untrue, because what happened next was something completely astonishing and unexpected. It was a Friday afternoon, and my mother-in-law Georgina was scheduled to arrive soon. We had prepared the guest room with all of the necessities and some of her favorite things so that she would feel comfortable and hopefully be less dramatic and bothersome. Around noon, I heard the doorbell, and my wife, who was in the kitchen at the time preparing some things for her arrival, called out to me and said, "I think she's here. Kenny, please go answer the door." I braced myself and walked up to the door and opened it. On the other side was a woman who was baring her teeth. It wasn't exactly a smile, rather, she actually looked like she was scowling at me. My mother-in-law said, "Hello, Kenneth. How was your journey? I hope you're doing well." I welcomed her inside, taking her belongings, doing all the necessary preparations. In carrying out my responsibilities as a host, I aimed to maintain a pleasant and polite demeanor. However, I must admit that I am starting to feel annoyed by the continuous complaints from Georgina. "Oh my, the patio looks absolutely marvelous, Kenneth. Did you work on it?" "Yes, indeed. It simply looks stunning. I should come and take some photographs soon. Oh, could you kindly bring those bags upstairs to my room? Also, would you be so kind as to fetch me a cup of coffee? I would like a caramel macchiato with some whipped cream, if you don't mind." Did she believe that this place was a Starbucks? If you've ever seen the play A Streetcar Named Desire, you might have an idea of the type of person Georgina resembles. She behaves just like Blanche, someone who exudes an air of superiority combined with feigned innocence and naivety. She struts around as if every step she takes is a gift to be bestowed upon anyone who sees her. I detest such arrogance, and to make matters worse, she is also rude. Just then, Kimberly emerged from the kitchen to greet her mother. "You look stunning," she exclaimed. "Oh, stop it, Kimberly. Do I? You're lying." "Well, I suppose I do look quite well. It's all thanks to this new diet I'm on. You should give it a try. You seem like you could use it, sweetheart. I wanted to interject, but not this weekend. This weekend, we can do whatever we please. That's why I ordered my caramel macchiato. Speaking of which, Kenneth, when can I expect it? I'm incredibly thirsty and in need of a drink this very moment, or else I might faint. Do you see what I mean? We enjoyed a delightful lunch, meticulously prepared by after spending quality time with my affectionate spouse. I found myself searching on the internet for instructions on how to create a delicious caramel macchiato. My wife took it upon herself to meticulously analyze every aspect of the meal, followed by reassuring remarks that we needn't worry too much. However, she emphasized the importance of being more cautious in the future to avoid such trivial errors. Although she seemed to take pleasure in condescendingly instructing us, personally, I could tolerate it. On the other hand, I could sense that Kimberly struggled to cope with her mother's constant lectures. After all, it's difficult to handle criticism from one's own parent, unlike myself, who tends to seek revenge whenever possible. Later in the afternoon, Georgina rambled endlessly about her fondness for our house, expressing her unique way of affection towards it. While my experiences in Bora Bora were undoubtedly marvelous, I must admit that I didn't enjoy them as much as my trip to Zanzibar, with its breathtaking landscapes and even more enchanting locals. Although this vacation won't compare to those stunning destinations, it is still a vacation nonetheless. Perhaps this simpler getaway will serve as a humbling experience, considering my past encounters with extravagant places. It will be a pleasant change of pace, I believe. Fellas, I know I'm not alone when I say that I frequently drifted off during the conversation. And even when I snapped back to reality, hoping for a slightly more interesting discussion, it was still ongoing. Georgina possessed a talent for prolonging matters far beyond their necessary extent. Nevertheless, we spent the afternoon engaged in conversation, primarily between Kimberly and Georgina. I, on the other hand, served as a mere decorative presence beside my wife, ensuring her comfort. Occasionally, I interjected with my opinions to give the impression that I was actively listening. It was around 4 p.m. that same evening when things took an unexpected turn. You know, Kimberly, I have been admiring your house ever since you arrived, Georgina began. And may I just say, it is absolutely breathtaking. Oh, thank you so much, Mom, Kimberly replied. Kenny and I have put in a lot of effort to improve this place. We spent a considerable amount of time preparing for your visit. But you know, this beauty is too good to keep to myself. What do you mean, Georgina? What are you trying to say? Kimberly inquired. Well, you see, on my trips to Cancun, Fiji, or India, just to name a few, I have always brought along friends or family, Georgina explained. I simply don't enjoy vacationing alone. As I grow older, traveling to foreign places can be quite risky. So it has become somewhat of a tradition for me to have companions like Ursula or Justine accompany me. That's a lovely tradition. How have they been? It's been quite some time since I last spoke with them, Kimberly asked. Well, it's funny you should ask because they are actually on their way here now. You can catch up with them yourself, Georgina revealed. Kimberly nearly choked on the coffee she had been sipping throughout the afternoon. I would have performed an impressive spit take if I were in a movie. I refrained from consuming any liquid in my mouth because I was taken aback by what she just uttered. Nevertheless, I maintained my composure and managed to suppress my astonishment. Now, please proceed to the kitchen, Georgina continued. We proceeded to the kitchen to discuss this absurdity. Inform me if she is joking, darling. I don't think she is, but Hugh informed me that only she was coming. We only prepared for one person. I am equally surprised as you are, darling. I assure you that I had no knowledge of this until now, just like you, Kimberly explained. I commenced pacing back and forth in the kitchen. Well, what should we do? I suppose we must inform her that we only prepared for one person. Perhaps we can accommodate the girls in a hotel, and they can visit during the day to spend time with Mom. I let out a sigh and expressed my frustration. This situation is incredibly convenient, isn't it? Please note the sarcasm. As much as I inquired about the well-being of Ursula and Justine, my aunt-in-law and sister-in-law respectively, I am not interested in entertaining them for the entire weekend. Unfortunately, they possess similar traits to their mother, albeit not as severe. Having all of them around would create chaos. We continued to argue about it until Georgina herself entered the kitchen. What seems to be the issue? I find it a delightful idea to bring along other family members to enjoy this vacation weekend with me. She began to pout, and for some reason, it affected Kimberly in the same way that Kimberly's pouting affected me when she wanted something. Georgina has a knack for manipulating her way into anything with her innocent-looking eyes. The apple's descent from the tree wasn't too distant in that aspect. Oh no, Mom, please don't be upset. It was a delightful suggestion, but I'm afraid we just can't handle this sudden change, especially on such short notice. Kenny and I were discussing accommodating Ursula and Justine in a nearby hotel, and then they can visit during the day. Angeline, sorry, I meant Angeline. Jolene is also joining them. So in total, 3 additional individuals will be coming, which means you want 4 extra people in this house. I apologize, Georgina, but that won't work. Oh, Kenny dear, don't be so rigid. Jolene simply must come. She hasn't been part of the tradition, and she has expressed her desire to join in. Plus, she is your younger sister-in-law, so it makes sense to accommodate her. Honestly, you're not even considered our true family, so it's logical for you to leave and for the rest of the girls to come over and stay. It's only for a few days after all. Mom, how can you say that? Kenny is our real family, isn't he? You're prioritizing him over your own sisters. That's not what I meant, and that isn't the main issue we had, Mom. We were concerned about space. We don't think there will be enough room to accommodate everyone. I'm glad you brought that up because I have come up with a very helpful solution that will satisfy everyone. Okay, let's hear it. So I was thinking that perhaps Ursula and I could share the bed in the guest room, considering how spacious it is. Then Jolene had no intention of causing any discomfort or offense. It seems that there was a miscommunication and misunderstanding regarding the sleeping arrangements. I apologize for any confusion or inconvenience caused. Let's find a solution that works for everyone. Instead of having 3 people sleep in one bed, we can explore alternative options. Perhaps we can arrange for an extra bed or make use of a sofa bed. It's important to ensure that everyone feels comfortable and respected during their stay. As for Kenneth staying here during this time, let's discuss it further and consider everyone's preferences. It's essential to maintain a peaceful and harmonious environment for everyone involved. Communication is key in situations like these. It would have been helpful if we had known about your plans in advance so that we could have made appropriate arrangements. Let's try to be more open and transparent with each other moving forward. I understand that emotions may be running high at the moment, but let's approach this situation with understanding and respect. We are all family, and it's important to treat each other with kindness and consideration. In conclusion, let's work together to find a suitable solution that ensures everyone's comfort and happiness. Open and honest communication will help us resolve any misunderstandings and create a pleasant environment for all. I didn't comprehend, but I glanced at my spouse, and she gazed at me with imploring eyes. I yielded and exhaled out of exasperation and uttered, "Georgina, I would have greatly appreciated better communication. As I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't have minded leaving you ladies to your own devices for the weekend. I could have gone on a trip with the boys or volunteered at the orphanage or something of that nature. But springing this upon people is not appropriate. We are adults, just like you viewers or your children. We have welcomed you into our home, and you need to show respect for that." While I remained composed and politely addressed her mistake, she scoffed, walked around, and even laughed at times, as if trying to avoid the embarrassment of being confronted by her sister-in-law. Nevertheless, I continued, "If you want to have a girls' trip and have all the girls here for the weekend, that's fine. Do you want me out of the house? That's fine too, but I'll return after this weekend." With that, I kissed my wife on the cheek and proceeded to go to our room. Throughout this interaction, Kimberly attempted to reason with her mother and let her know that this behavior was not acceptable and that she had genuinely upset me. However, similar to how she treated me, Georgina just laughed it off and acted as if I was being overly sensitive. I packed some clothes in a large duffel bag and left the house. I then made an online reservation for a hotel room and headed there, but not before stopping by the volunteer work I regularly do at an orphanage, which was previously mentioned takes place at a facility called Open Arms. I have a deep affection for this place and enjoy my time there. However, it is not without its challenges, as dealing with unruly and disobedient toddlers, children, and teenagers can be quite demanding. While I was engaged in playing and assisting the children one evening, I found myself contemplating how I could seek retribution. Please understand that I am not malicious, or at least I don't believe I am, but I do find satisfaction in teaching others a lesson. Perhaps that quality is what makes me well suited for this job. I have established a positive relationship with the children, offering them both love and advantage of me. As a result, we get along quite well. Some of them even noticed my frustration and inquired if everything was all right. I reassured them, explaining that I had recently had an argument with my mother-in-law. I simplified the situation for the child's understanding, as he was young. Surprisingly, he seemed to comprehend and sympathize with my predicament. "With all due respect, Ken, your mother-in-law is unreasonable," he remarked. Trusting his judgment, I considered ways to get back at her and teach her a lesson. However, I struggled to come up with any ideas. It was then that Maverick, another child, suggested something that would change everything. "We could offer our help. What are you thinking? Speaking of, if you gather a small group of us children and invite us to your home, we could disrupt her weekend." I pondered the idea for a while, and then I pondered it some more. I must admit, Maverick, as his name implies, was quite cunning. It all made perfect sense. The kids needed a weekend getaway, and I could get back at my mother-in-law for disrespecting my personal space and time. We devised the necessary plans, much like two masterminds plotting world domination, and patiently waited until the next day to carry out our revenge. The following day was a Saturday, and this is how it unfolded. Kimberly approached the door upon hearing the doorbell ring, and to her surprise, she was greeted by a delightful sight. "Well, hello there, Kimberly, Kenny, oh, and Maverick. How are you?" she exclaimed. At that moment, she noticed 4 other children accompanying them, and her expression turned to one of confusion. "What's going on, babe?" she asked. "Oh, nothing much," I replied nonchalantly. "I just thought it would be lovely to bring the kids along for Georgina's delightful vacation." I entered the room, leading the group of 5 children with me. Their ages ranged from 6 to 10, and they were known for being quite mischievous. However, they were also capable of showing love when they wished. It was only when they felt disrespected that they would become unruly. I promised them all a treat of ice cream if they agreed to unleash their chaos to the fullest extent. "Good morning, Kenneth. How are you? And who might these charming children be?" she inquired. "Oh, these kids are from the orphanage." "Yes, we can see that. But why are they here?" "That's a good question, Maverick. Would you like to answer that?" "Well, Ken just told us about the wonderful vacation you were having at his house. And since we have never been on a vacation, he invited us to join in the festivities." The relatives, who were all gathered in the living area, enjoying mimosas and croissants, were shocked and exchanged looks of horror when some of the kids started grabbing food from the table. Some took handfuls of bacon, others grabbed pancakes, and some even gulped down large quantities of orange juice. The looks of horror intensified, and at that moment, Georgina stood up and quickly took me away from the impending commotion. "What is the meaning of this?" Maverick exclaimed. "I wanted the kids to have their own little vacation. I'm sure you wouldn't mind." "How could you bring all these kids into the house? This is too much," someone named Maverick protested. "This was supposed to be a relaxing weekend for me and the girls you know." "Oh well, I'm sure you wouldn't mind. It's only for a couple of days, after all," Georgina replied. "Okay, listen here, buddy. I know you're upset," Maverick interjected. "No, you listen here, Georgina. I've had enough of you acting all arrogant and domineering, acting as if you are the rightful owner of this place. If you wish to stay here for a vacation, that is acceptable, but the children will also be staying. They deserve to enjoy themselves just as much as you do. Hopefully, next time you consider causing problems for others and inconveniencing them, you will remember that it is not pleasant when it is done to you." And with that, I did not give her another chance to speak. I simply walked back into the living room to witness the ensuing chaos. "Little girl, you must not play with that. It is an expensive designer bag. I warn you, you mischievous little creatures are causing so much havoc. Is this what vacations are typically like? Because if so, I no longer desire it." The ladies were being bothered by the unruly children who were causing chaos. You may be wondering how Kimberly was feeling. I searched for her and found her in the corner of the room, quietly laughing to herself. She also found this amusing. You may also be curious about how I felt watching my house being torn apart. I will say that it was all worth it to see the absolute horror and disgust on my in-laws' faces. I didn't mind cleaning up, and Maverick even assured me that they would take responsibility for the messes they made and promised to help clean once they were finished. I simply needed to witness this moment of complete chaos as the ladies frantically tried to handle children they had never dealt with before. It was quite a scene. It was amusing and comical to observe the striking difference between the sophisticated and dignified older women and the energetic and unruly children. Everything seemed to be in proper order, so I decided to leave. I would pick up the children either tomorrow or perhaps on Monday. Goodbye. With that, I exited the house, chuckling to myself. Once I reached my hotel room, I dialed Kimberly's number and informed her that the children were not meant to harm her, but rather to play pranks on the snobbish ladies. I also assured her that if she ever